In the previous exercise, we saw the use of the Ionic split pane in order to render our views better in our application, especially when we are using screens with large screen real estate. In this exercise, we're going to explore the use of the Ionic grid to better lay out the content within our pages, so that if you have larger screens, the content will be better distributed on the pages and automatically adapt to the screen size. So this is yet another approach that we can take for properly rendering our views to adapt to the different screen sizes. We briefly looked at Ionic grid in one of the earlier exercises where we did the layout of the buttons into the cards for our dish detail page. But at that time, I didn't stress too much about the actual use of the Ionic grid. Let's explore that in a little more detail in this exercise to understand how we can use the Ionic grid. Going to our application in the browser, you see that for large screens like this iPad, which is in the landscape mode, the screen real estate is not really effectively being used. Furthermore, even like when you look at the menu also, it's the same story. We can do a much better layout of this content using the Ionic grid. So how do we do that? Let's explore that next. Going to our home page, we know that in our home page, we have got 3 different cards that we are rendering within our home page. Now, if we can enclose these cards into their own columns and then enclose all the 3 cards into a row, and then use the row and the columns to control how these 3 cards are laid out on larger screen sizes, then we can make a better use of the screen real estate. So to do that, I'll go into the home.html page, and after the Ion content, I will apply the Ion row to the card here. And along with the Ion row, what I will specify is all the content in this row should be laid out so that they are centered within that row. So I will use the align items center attribute for the Ion row here. Now, the content itself, I will enclose it in an Ion column with the column specifications as col 12, meaning that for anything that we haven't specified, it will occupy the entire width of the row. But for screens of large size and large and extra large, it'll occupy 4 columns out of the 12 columns in my row. And we will enclose this inside the Ion column, the first card into the Ion column, and then I will apply exactly the same Ion column specification for the second card. So going into the second card, I will apply the Ion column specification for the second card. And then for the third card also, we will use exactly the same specification. So I'm going to copy that. For the third card, I'm going to apply the same. And I will now enclose everything inside the Ion column and the Ion row. With this, now my home page will be rendered in such a way that the 3 cards will occupy 1/3 of the row width, because each of them have been given LG4. So for large and extra large screen sizes, they'll occupy 1/3 of the screen width. But for extra small, small, and medium screen sizes, each piece of content will occupy the entire width of the screen, which works out very well for the layout of the content for this particular application. One additional change that we would like to make is to enclose the whole thing inside an Ion grid. So going in here, I will apply the Ion grid to this, and then going down to the bottom here, I will enclose this inside an Ion grid. With this, we complete the update to home.html. Now, continuing with this trend, we'll go to the menu.html page. And inside the menu.html page, we know that the menu items are being laid out by using this Ion card here. So to this Ion card, I am going to apply the row and column specification. So I will go in here and then say Ion row. I don't need any further attribute to the Ion row. And then I'll say Ion column, and then we'll say column 12, and we'll use column LG4 also for this case. And now, instead of doing the ng for the Ion card, I will simply cut that part, and then this iteration will work with the Ion call, and then inside which is the Ion card, which will automatically get the dish for rendering the Ion card here. And then we'll enclose that inside the Ion column and the Ion row here. And then we will enclose this inside the Ion grid. That's it in the menu.html page. You can do the same thing for the other pages also. So with these changes, let's save the changes and take a look at our application in the browser. Taking a look at our application in the browser, you now notice that the home page, the three cards are laid out side by side in the view here, and which looks much better than the stretched out cards that you saw in the earlier version. Looking at the menu, for example, we will see that this way of rendering the menu looks much better than what we had before. Again, looking at it in full screen view, and the menu looks like this. So much better laid out menu, and the home page looks like this. So with the use of the grid, we are able to much better position the content. Now you must be wondering what the view looks like for smaller screen sizes. If you switch to the portrait mode on your iPad, you immediately see that it goes back to its original layout. And so see the difference in the landscape mode. The grid kicks in and then renders the content side by side. But in the portrait mode, it's the old way of rendering where you have a single column of rendering here, because we used col 12 on the columns there. And so this would qualify as a so this is a 768 by 1024 screen, so which would qualify as a medium size screen. For the smaller screen widths, let's check a Galaxy S5. So for the smaller screen widths, obviously you would see that the content was being rendered just like before. No changes there, and you see the side menu being hidden and then called up when required. With this use of the Ionic grid, you see that the layout of the content is much better on screens, especially for large screens that we have seen here. With this, we complete this exercise. In this exercise, we explored the Ionic grid for doing the layout of the content in a much better way. This is a good time for you to save all the changes and commit to your Git repository with the message grid.